So I've never heard about men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am...
No, Jane.
What?
It's not minuscule, and I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy.
You know, there's something oddly satisfying about watching Hollywood royalty crash into reality, like seeing a movie star argue with physics. That's exactly what happened when Jane Fonda sat down with Bill Maher on his show Club Random. What started as a casual chat quickly turned into a full-blown ideological showdown. And let's just say Maher didn't come to play nice, he came locked, loaded, and ready to drop truth bombs. Jane Fonda walked in expecting another friendly echo chamber, the kind of interview where celebrities nod in agreement, throw around buzzwords like systemic and equity, and leave feeling enlightened after saying absolutely nothing. But instead, she walked straight into a verbal ambush. Maher, the anti-woke sniper himself, wasn't about to let her off easy. What followed was pure, unfiltered entertainment. Right from the start, Fonda tried to brush off the whole men can get pregnant debate, and you could practically hear the record scratch when she said, "I've never heard about men getting pregnant." It must be some tiny fringe of the far left. Really, Jane? Never heard of it? That line's been paraded on talk shows, college campuses, and social media for years. You can't even open TikTok without tripping over a birthing person discussion. The moment she said it, Maher pounced calmly but firmly, and you could almost see the gears turning in her head. He told her straight, this isn't some tiny movement buried in the depths of Twitter. It's become mainstream rhetoric in liberal circles. And that's the problem. People like Fonda are so locked inside their curated media bubbles that they have no clue what's actually being said outside their echo chambers. It's like living in a soundproof Hollywood mansion while the rest of the country argues in the street below. Maher wasn't cruel, though. He just refused to let her hide behind ignorance. And honestly, that's what makes his interviews so great. He doesn't go for cheap shots, he just holds up a mirror. Then came the moment when Fonda tried to argue that California isn't extreme left, and you could almost hear Maher chuckle. He hit back with, "You've never heard that California is overtaxed and overregulated, that it's a one-party state with no checks on extreme leftism?" And Fonda, bless her heart, just shook her head. She genuinely didn't think California leaned far left. That's how insulated she's become.
A garage door?
Absolutely.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that is...
No, you know this about California. Come
No,
on.
I don't.
Well,
I'm sorry, I don't.
You've never heard that California is overtaxed and overregulated? That we are a one-party state where there's sort of no checks on that sort of extreme leftism. And that, what do you think?
I don't for a minute consider California a state that is extreme leftist. Not at all, not any way.
Well, that shows where your policy.
Meanwhile, the rest of the country sees California as a living experiment in overregulation and virtue signaling. Sky-high taxes, a mass exodus of residents, and tent cities everywhere. It's practically a case study in what happens when ideology replaces reality. But Fonda wasn't done digging. She started blaming the far right for everything under the sundae. You know, the routine Trump, the Tea Party, the usual villains. Maher, however, made a point that cut right to the heart of America's political divide. People aren't necessarily voting for Trump because they adore him. They're voting for him because the far left has gone so far off the deep end that he ends up looking like the only sane alternative.
Became the birthers, they became the Tea Party. There's about a third of this country that's very hard right. Of course they love Trump. When he left office, he had an approval rating of 34%. So he really only had those people. Why is he now like tied? Because the other part of the coalition are people who, they don't really like him that much. They just think the far left has gone so nutty on so many issues.
That's what they're being told.
That's what they...
By people like you.
Because it's true. You think the far left does nothing crazy?
Oh, I'm sure.
That's when the tension really started to crackle. You could feel the energy shift, like the air right before a thunderstorm. Fonda tried to argue that people only think the far left has gone crazy because, quote, that's what they're being told. Maher fired back, because it's true. Boom. That was the knockout. You could almost see her realize what just happened, because in the very next breath, she admitted that, sure, the far left does do some crazy things. It was like watching someone accidentally confess during a debate. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a spoon. And this is classic woke logic: deny, deflect, then accidentally prove your opponent right. It's practically a political reflex at this point. But Maher wasn't done. When Fonda asked who exactly he meant by the far left, he said, "I could give you a million examples." She challenged him for one, and he brought up the NAACP issuing a travel advisory warning black people not to go to Florida. Now, no matter which side you're on, that's just absurd. No one's actually avoiding Florida because of that statement. It's theater, not activism. It's the kind of empty gesture that makes regular Americans roll their eyes and ask, "Are you people serious?" And Maher's right, that kind of stuff turns people off. It's not that most Americans have suddenly become hardcore conservatives. It's that they're exhausted by performative outrage. They want logic, not lectures.
Far left. What do you mean when you say far left?
I mean, I could give you a million examples.
Yeah, well, give me one.
Okay, the NAACP.
You think the NAACP is far
Could I
left?
finish my sentence?
Yes.
You asked me for an example.
Yeah.
Travel advisory, that's like the State Department does to go to, I'm sure when you went to Vietnam, they were advising you not to. There's a war on
I
it.
didn't talk to them. I don't have no.
I know, but a travel advisory.
Yeah.
Today we have them for very dangerous countries.
Yeah.
Don't go to North Korea. Don't go to Iran.
Yeah.
You know where they issued a travel advisory for black people not to go?
Yeah.
Florida. Every day there's stories like that just makes people roll their eyes and go, "Are you people nuts?" Even if they don't matter that much, I don't think one person listened to this and thought, "I can't go to Florida." But they just suggest something to the average person, which I completely understand, which is, wow, do you people ever find anything that's ridiculous?
At this point, Maher shifted to something deeper, the way the left has twisted legitimate causes into ideological purity tests. Take the whole "men can get pregnant" argument. Maher made it crystal clear that's not science, it's fantasy. He said he fully supports trans rights, protecting dignity, respect, and equal opportunity. But that's very different from demanding we rewrite biology just to make people feel comfortable. That's not compassion. That's delusion. And you know what? He's absolutely right. Fighting for equal treatment is one thing, but asking everyone to deny basic facts of life is something else entirely. That's where the far left keeps losing people. They confuse empathy with enforced conformity. Real respect doesn't require delusion, it requires honesty. And somewhere along the way, the woke movement decided that feelings should take precedence over facts.
Men can get pregnant, that kind of stuff. And I understand that a trans woman can get pregnant. That's different than a man getting. But insist on blurring that line as if that's some sort of reasonable social cause, as opposed to just being for having full rights, respect.
Fonda, though, wasn't buying it, or maybe she just didn't know what to say. You could see the uncertainty flash across her face. That's when Maher dropped the line that sealed the deal. "I assume it's because you're locked into media that never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy about the blue team." Translation: you've been spoon-fed propaganda, and you don't even realize it.
Men getting pregnant. I've never heard about this argument. It must be some part of what you call the far left that is so minuscule that I, who am...
No, Jane.
What?
It's not minuscule, and I'm sorry, you can't throw this back on us. I assume it's because you are locked into media that just never wants anyone in their audience to know anything sketchy about the blue.
That was the hammer blow. You could tell Fonda felt cornered. She tried to laugh it off by saying maybe she should start watching Fox News, but even that came out like an unintentional confession, as if she was admitting she's been living inside an ideological bubble.
I mean, I don't know. I read two papers, and maybe I don't. I should watch Fox News.
No,
I guess.
I don't watch that. That's too far. But you don't have to. I'm not going to torture.
And honestly, she has. While she's been surrounded by applause from like-minded activists, the real world has moved on. Ordinary Americans are dealing with inflation, safety issues, and cultural division, while Hollywood elites are still arguing about pronouns and plastic straws. Maher just popped that bubble. He didn't yell or grandstand, he simply exposed the gap between celebrity activism and real life. And that's what makes this interview so fascinating. It's not just two people debating politics, it's a snapshot of what's happening across the country, a clash between ideology and reality, emotion and logic. Maher even brought up defund the police, another prime example of how woke politics backfires. He pointed out that most Black Americans never supported defunding the police, they wanted reform, not chaos. But the activist class didn't care. They pushed the slogan anyway. And now, years later, communities are paying the price. Crime went up, neighborhoods became less safe, and suddenly everyone who chanted defund the police is pretending they never said it.
Certainly has been the history of this country, was police who were all too willing to shoot Black people. So defund the police, though, was not a good idea. And you know who mostly didn't think it was a good idea was Black people, because they want police in their neighborhoods, probably more than we need them in.
It's the same cycle every time: impulsive moral outrage followed by quiet regret once reality sets in. And Maher nailed it when he said the radical fringe has hijacked the Democratic Party. The moderates are too scared to speak up because they know what happens to anyone who challenges the woke mob: cancellation, professional exile, and public shaming. It's no longer about ideas or progress, it's about obedience. And to his credit, Maher refuses to bow down. He even brought up the ACLU, once a true champion of free speech, now defending censorship in the name of safety. When one of their own leaders said she'd die on the hill of banning a book, Maher called it exactly what it is: authoritarianism disguised as activism.
The Republicans tried to catch the Democrats with this, and they put this on, they brought it up in Congress.
Yeah.
And all the Democrats voted against it. The Democratic politicians were not for defunding the police. It's that radical fringe that has captured a lot of the media, academia, some of these cultural institutions that are not liberal anymore by my old school liberalism. The ACLU was all about free speech. They don't really believe in it anymore. They believe, in one of their chief people who is trans said, I will die on this hill.
And that's what makes his critique so powerful. He's not speaking from the right, he's an old school liberal, someone who used to believe in open dialogue, individual rights, and reason. He represents what the left used to be before it lost its mind. Then came the bigger question: why does America feel so divided? Fonda's guest, Van Jones, jumped in and suggested that corporations are dividing us for profit, that social media companies make money off outrage. And for once, he had a solid point. Algorithms have turned us into lab rats chasing dopamine hits of affirmation. You search for a yoga mat and your feed decides you're liberal. Your neighbor looks up a truck and suddenly they're far right. From that moment on, you're both living in completely different realities. And before you know it, you're convinced your neighbor's gone insane.
You, on your phone, you ordered a yoga mat or something. Your algorithm figured out you're a liberal. Then your neighbor looked up a truck. You're a conservative. And from that day forward, you got different information every day and nobody sent a notice. And so now you literally think your neighbor is insane, because how could they possibly think this stuff? But if you put your phone next to their phone, you're in different algorithmic universes, and that is brand new and very...
Maher and Jones were absolutely right. That's dangerous. We're no longer just living in different political camps. We're living in entirely different universes. And that, more than any politician or policy, is what's tearing the country apart. But here's where I'll take it a step further. These divisions didn't just appear on their own, they're being exploited. The far left thrives on outrage. They need division because unity would expose the emptiness of their ideology. When people stop fighting, they start thinking, and thinking is the last thing authoritarians want you to do. That's why every disagreement turns into a moral crisis. Disagree with one slogan, and suddenly you're a bigot. Question one policy, and you're labeled far right. The goal isn't to debate, it's to silence. And the result? Millions of people too afraid to speak their minds, not because they've changed their beliefs, but because the cost of honesty has become too high. That's not democracy, that's cultural.
Voters say U.S. can't repair severe divisions. And they went into the fact that 5 years ago, even during the pandemic and during the George Floyd protests, even then people thought, well, we are going to get through this. And now they seem to be on the page of, it's not going to happen.
You know, Bill,
What do we do? But did you see the story?
Yeah, and I think what's new about this moment, one of my teachers and friends, Doug Seidman, likes to say this: we aren't divided. We are being divided.
That's right.
By companies for profit. Okay, and we have our divisions. We always have. Always have.
So when Maher says the far left is dragging the Democratic Party toward irrelevance, he's not exaggerating. People are finally waking up to the fact that progressive no longer means progress. It means policing thought, erasing dissent, and rewriting reality. And this conversation with Jane Fonda proves it. It shows that even icons of the old left can't keep up with the ideological monster their own movement created. By the end of the interview, you could sense it, that quiet moment when Fonda realized she was out of her depth. The talking points didn't land, the buzzwords fell flat, and when logic finally entered the room, emotion had nowhere to hide. It's not that Maher humiliated her. He simply made her face the one thing Hollywood avoids more than bad box office numbers: the truth. And maybe, just maybe, that's exactly what we need more of. Uncomfortable conversations, honest disagreement, and a little less moral theater. Because here's the thing. Disagreement isn't division. Division is pretending that only one side deserves to speak. So what's the takeaway here? Maybe it's that reality doesn't care about ideology. Maybe it's that no amount of hashtags or virtue signaling can replace logic. Or maybe it's that the only way forward is to stop shouting, start listening, and finally admit when we're wrong. Jane Fonda's bubble may have burst on Club Random, but millions more still need theirs popped. And maybe Bill Maher, love him or hate him, is one of the few people with the guts to keep doing it. So, what do you think? Was Maher too harsh, or was he just holding up a much-needed mirror to Hollywood hypocrisy? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear where you stand on this. And hey, if you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss another video like this. Trust me, we're just getting started. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.